butterfly. And what we're gonna do first is we're gonna go ahead and give ourselves some marks of where we want to start and stop for that butterfly. If we think about the butterfly is painted on an angle in here. It's not just straight across. So what I wanna do is I wanna mark my points. So like right here is gonna be the outer edge of the top butterfly wing on the one side, and then I'm gonna mark down here as my stopping point. So we know that first line, the top of the butterfly, is going to be up in between these 2 points, all right? Then I want to make sure that I come down about here for the one bottom part of the wing, and then I'm going to come over to about here. That just gives me kind of a guide. I don't have to use that exactly, but I know that I don't want it to fall off of my canvas. I want it to stay on my canvas, so I kind of want to think about that as I'm drawing it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make that top line, because that's going to be my main line here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about where my center is. So I'm going to go right to about here. And if we do the casual, take our fingers and at the same time go over here, if you're lucky, you're going to find that center point. But the other way that you're going to find that center point is you're going to look at this corner. And if we kind of make a line of here to here and here to here, that's kind of what we want to do. So at the center point, so if I'm coming straight down here, I'm just going to make a little dot, because this is how I know I want to dip here. This is going to be where the head is, so it's going to make a little dip. So I'm going to kind of bow out. I'm not making a straight line. See how it bowed? So I'm not going to make a straight line. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to try and keep it the same bow. So we've got this as our top wing. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a circle up here for its head. I'm not going to worry about drawing the antennas right now, because we're going to do that background. We're going to paint that background on, and when I go to paint that background, it's going to be a little bit too hard to kind of paint around it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about the wings are going to come in and then come back out and come around. So I'm not going to worry about, when you look at the finished painting, it's got a lot of ridges like this up and down. But for this, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to give myself an idea that it's going to come in and then it's going to come down and around. It's going to come back up. So if we've got line here to kind of cut it in half, then it's going to come right to there, and then we're going to try and make it symmetrical. So wherever I came here, I'm going to come up here on this side. And again, if it's easier for you to do one side over another, turn that canvas around, turn it however you need to get it at the angle that you want. So then if I look here, so this is about where that one should come to, and then I'm going to bow out again and come around here. So we've got the main shape of our butterfly. Now this is going to be one of those things, again, that we're not going to do all of those details. I'm not going to draw all of those lines right now, because when I go to paint it, it's going to, we're going to do that blended background on the butterfly first, and then we'll go ahead and draw over it. So now that I've got the main shape of my butterfly, I'm going to look at it and I'm going to decide whether or not I'm happy with it. When I look at this one, I'm pretty content with everything, but what I do want to do a little bit differently is I want to come up to these top wings, and I want to just make this a little bit more rounded here. So I'm okay with where it starts here, but I want to just round this edge a little bit, and I want to do that to both sides so that it comes up just a little bit higher. It should come up, I think, about halfway into the butterfly's head, that height. And that's kind of making me a little bit happier here. Again, not something that you have to do, but something to think about is when you're looking at things, if you're not happy with it when you sketched it, you're likely not going to be happy with the end result as far as painting goes. So you want to make sure that you've got your sketch the best that you possibly can. And then I want to remember too that these corners are going to be rounded on this edge, and these corners are going to be rounded. So you want to take the time right now, and you really want to play with the shape of the butterfly, and you want to make sure that you've got the main shape, again, we're not worrying about all those ridges. We're not worrying about all of these details necessarily. If you want to, you can. But we're not worrying about all that. What we're worrying about is just making sure we've got the main line for the body and we've got that shape going. So I think we're good. Okay. So now that I've got my butterfly sketched out, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start painting my background. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of my blue and mix it with my white so I can get a light blue. Now I just like to do different things here and there, so instead of just painting it a straight blue background, I'm just going to make some circles as I go. And what's going to happen is I'm just going to keep mixing in a little bit of white here. And if you want more blue, you can mix in a little bit more blue. It's really up to you what you're looking for. You can do bigger circles, or you can keep doing smaller circles. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to fill all around. I'm not too worried about going on his head here, only because that's going to be black and the black will cover that with no problem. So even though I'm doing circles, I still want to make sure that I cover all of my canvas so I don't have any missed spaces here. Go right around here. Do some bigger ones, do some smaller ones. Right along the edge here. Again, I want some change in there, so I'm going to add a little bit here. That way you can see that we've got some color change here. I'm going to go right up to those wings. Again, I'm not super concerned because there's going to be a little bit of a black outline here. Just like that. I'm going to be cautious of where I hold on to my canvas, because with that background being wet, just going to keep adding white and blue as I go. Go. So there we've got that whole background painted like that. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse out that brush here. Get it all nice and cleaned off and dried. There we go. And then make just a little bit of a green, but more of a bluish green, turquoisey color, like that. So just a little bit of blue and yellow here. And again, I'm going to add some white in here. I don't want it to be super dark. I want it to be different than that background. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this shape. I'm going to just go ahead and keep painting this. Now this is a little bit darker than I was hoping for, so I'm going to add some more white to my plate so that I can soften that up a little bit. As I come out, again, when you want to blend those colors, because I want it to go from darker to lighter. So as I blend those colors, I want them to both be wet. And then I'm just going to keep going over them to make them mix as much as I can. But again, want them to be lighter as it comes out. So now I've got light and dark, so then I'm going to just kind of blend those. So now you can see how it goes from darker to lighter. And then we're going to do the same thing to the other side. So we're going to start with that darker color. I'm going to turn my canvas around so I can get that same kind of angle going here. So I've got that darker color. It's going to come right and meet in the middle here. There we go. I've got that darker color, so now I'm going to go ahead and start working on that lighter. And again, I want them to blend. So I'm going to keep going over it while it's wet, because that's what's going to get it to blend the best. There we go. So we've got that painted in with those wings here. My background is already dry, so that's good. So I'm ready to go there. Now what I am going to do, I do see just a little spot here. If you want to come up just a little higher with that darker color as I come in. So I can just add that in, and then as I come out to a lighter spot, I can just add that lighter in. Just like that. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse out this brush. Just like that. Get it nice and cleaned up. And then I'm really just going to be working with the smaller brush from this point forward. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drip some water into my black, because I'm really going to want this to be able to really glide when I do all of these details. And remember, as we do the veins on this butterfly, it doesn't have to be exactly the same as what I do. But what I'm going to start with is I'm actually going to mix a little bit of a dark gray here. And this is actually going to be for the head and a little bit of the body. Just want to make sure it's nice and mixed in. Don't have any drips, but I'm going to just wipe this off just to make sure. No surprises. And I'm going to roll right into that paint And again, my wings are a little bit wet here, so I want to be cautious on where I place my hand, so it's going to be better for me to turn my painting a different way. And I'm going to just go ahead and give the head a little outline here. And add a little bit of white, just because I do want it a dark gray, but I don't want it too close to black, because we're going to have so much black in the outline. We want to be able to differentiate between the two here. I'm just going to mix myself a little bit more. And then right down the center here, just going to make this little triangle here, tall and skinny, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to very carefully take this and extend it all the way down. Now again, remember, the harder we press, the wider the line. I want to really focus on making my lines thinner on this butterfly, so I can really get some good practice with some line work. So I've got, that is the main body. Now I'm going to go in with the black. And I'm actually going to thicken this area up, just like that. So I'm just making that. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So again, for me it's easier to turn my canvas. You do it however it works best for you. But I'm going to try and make it the same on both sides as best as I can. Remember, if we're going to do something, we're always going to do our best. We can always be proud when we know we tried our hardest. So we've got that. And then I'm going to make this come down just a little bit on both sides, just like that. And then I'm going to bump it right back out. That on both sides, and I'm going to fill that area in just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead, now this wing is definitely dry, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my first outline. Go right to the edge there. Just like that. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Change my angle. I don't feel like I've got a good grip here, so I want to see how I can do it best. There we go. I see a thick line of paint, so I'm going to go ahead and spread that out. And then when we get to the edges, I want to give them little come down. But also as I come down, I want to get these a little smaller as I go. Just like that. Now again, yours doesn't have to be exactly like this, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bumps on this side. So guess how many I want to try and make on the other side? I want to try and make 9. I'm going to come around. I want to follow that curve. Like that. Then I'm going to go ahead. Now on this, I'm not going to make them as specific of bumps. And when I get to this edge, I'm actually going to thicken this line up. So I'm going to press pretty wide here. And then as I come back closer, I'm going to lift up my brush. So it went from thicker to thinner. Right there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, or at least as close as possible to the same thing on the other side. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to thicken this up. Lift it up when I want it to thin out. So we've got like that. I'm going to close this line. You can see a little gap there. I do want to close that. So now we've got the main outline of our butterfly going. So while I'm waiting for that little outline to dry, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to work on the antennas. And what I want to do is I want to try and make them similar on both sides, but I'm going to start by pressing really lightly, coming around, and then just picking up. Now you can see where I kind of skipped a space, so I'm going to come back in. I'm going to fill that gap just a little bit, just like that. Now it's tricky doing the same thing on the other side, so try your best. Make sure you've got enough paint on your brush. And then start again. You want to go and try to get to the same height. Lift up. Now I can tell that this one is definitely wider than this one, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to this one and I'm going to widen it up. It's a lot easier to add paint than it is to take it away. Somewhere like that. But his head is a different color, so I need to go ahead and fix that there. There you go. Just like that. So now we've got our little antennas there. I'm going to look at my outline, and it's looking like my outline is still pretty wet here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start focusing on my veins. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to remember that all butterflies are not the same, so I'm not going to stress too much if my butterfly looks different than yours, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my first vein and I'm going to connect it to that second bump. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to follow that line, but then I'm going to widen it out and connect it to that second bump. Okay, so we've got that side. Then I'm going to come up halfway out and I'm going to make them kind of branch off like that. So again, I'm going to come about halfway out. I'm going to make them branch off like that. After that, I'm going to make them come to that first bump and come to this first bump, just like that. And then coming from the same starting point, I'm going to come to this line here. So the same starting point. So I started here before. Oops. Started here before. I'm going to show you how to fix this in a minute because I must have gotten black somewhere. So I'm going to find that starting point. I'm going to go right to there. The same thing here. And I'm going to go right to there. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look to here and I'm going to come from about the center and I'm going to curve out my line like this. And again, whatever I do to one side, I'm going to go ahead and do to the other side. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and start in the center again. I'm going to split this right there. So start in the center, split it right here. So a lot of my beginnings and endings are at the same for the bumps. If you count the bumps, you should be around the same ones. Then this one that came here is actually going to branch off, pop out, and then come back in like that. So it's going to branch off, pop out, and come back in. So about the same there. Noticing this line needs to be a little bit more like this. And that could be like that. That could be like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and from right about here I'm going to make a half circle to here on both sides. Like that. And then one's going to branch this way, one's going to branch. It's going to come right here. So one's going to branch, come about here. One's going to branch, come about here. So that's going to be where all of my veins are. So again, it's not important that you have them exactly like this, but what I recommend is trying to make them the same on both sides. So whatever you do to the left side, do the right side. Whatever you do to the right side, do the left side. That's how you're going to have the best looking butterfly that you can. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start painting in these lines here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to roll my brush into that black again. And I'm going to remember that some of my paint is wet. I'm going to do my best to start in one spot and take it all the way down. And when I run out of paint, I'm just going to go ahead and reload my brush. Just like that. And all I'm doing is tracing these lines for right now. I'm not worrying about anything else. We'll worry about some of the other details after. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and get these lines painted in. I'm going to start, and come over, just like that. If your paint is not gliding the way you want it to, make sure that you do add a little bit of water, but really, really mix it in. Make sure it doesn't drip before you put it on your canvas. You notice I've got a little thin spot in here, so I'm going to press a little harder as I go through there. My hand wasn't that steady, so I'm going to re-angle my canvas. Now it's going to come to there. And this one's going to come right over there. Then I'm going to go ahead, oh, I see a big glob here. Let me make sure I spread that out. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the other side. I'm going to take my time. I'm just worrying about the veins. I'm not worrying about the other details right now. You'll see later there's going to be a couple spots that we start to widen up. But for right now, we are just going ahead tracing these veins. Carefully as we can. Remember to re-angle that canvas whenever you need to, if that makes it easier for you to do these lines. There we go. I just keep reloading my brush as I need to, trying to keep consistent with how hard I press down on my brush so that my line thickness stays close to the same. So I've got all those veins painted out. Now what I'm going to do is, like I said, there were going to be some spots that we thicken up here, and so I'm going to round out, see what a difference that makes. I'm not going to do it to every spot, but I'm going to do it to these first few. So you're going to take your time, make sure that you aren't pressing too hard and that you're spreading that paint out, but see the difference between that side now and this side? Just gives it a nice little detail here. Just by thickening that up just a little bit. And then what you can also do is whenever you get to the end of the line here, you can curve it a little bit more, and again it just adds a little nice smooth detail there. So right here, you can thicken that up, and I can curve this one into it. Like that. And then this, I'm actually going to make a little rounded spot and fill this area in. Just like that. And again, whatever I do to one side, I'm going to try my best to do as equally as possible to the other side. But you can see the difference between those already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going here, thicken this side up just a little bit. Curve that in. And thicken these ones up and curve that in. See a little missed spot on this vein. There we go. I'm going to curve this one in and then thicken this side up. Just like that. And then these ones are going to be just a little bit thicker. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse out this brush. I'm going to give it just a few little accents here with the white. I'm going to add just a little bit of water so that it can glide a little bit easier. Whenever we're doing these little accents, you really want to have that ready to glide. Alright. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a couple. And I'm going to add one on this side, one on this side. And then I'm going to add one on his back, one on this wing, one on this wing, just like that. And maybe just a little bit down here. Can add one more just here and here. And here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of that darker color, if I don't have any, which it's looking like I don't have a lot of. Just going to simply make some more, add a little bit of that white. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add some little details. On the edges here. just like that. And then another one down here, like that, and like that. And then I can do just on this side. Picked up a little bit of black there, so I want to get a little new part on my brush here. So if I need to make a little bit more, I can make a little bit more. That's no big deal. Skip that spot because I can tell it's filled with black. Here, last spot right here. So then when I look at that, I'm pretty pleased. I'm gonna look to see if there's anything that I've missed. I do see another little black spot. So again, I'm gonna see if I can get lucky here. Take just a little bit of wet paper towel. I don't want to scrub too hard, so I don't want to take my color off. But there we go. I'm going to dab it like that. I did take a little bit of my color off, so what I want to do is not panic. Instead, I'm going to find that color that I was just working with, and I'm going to try and match it as best as I can. Looks like it's a little bit dark, so I'm just going to take a little bit of white and then mix it right in there. And then when that dries, it'll be as good as new. So then you want to look at everything else and you want to see, are there any missed spots? Do I want to change anything? Thinking it's looking pretty good here. Alright, so then last but not least, you're going to go ahead and wash those brushes. Make sure they're all nice and set and ready to go for next time. And we're all set. Good job, guys.